And here we are, in the same place, same idiots, trying to make sense of the world. It's been an interesting week. A lot has happened. We've had some showers. Perhaps the rainy season has started here in Harare. I don't know if it's rained where you are. And apparently you think the rainy season and your birthday have some sort of correlation.
Yeah, I've been running for 20 years. It always rains on the 3rd of October. But the last two seasons, it's been 3 weeks late. And I attribute it to climate change. These are the realities.
You actually believe in climate change? I thought, as a Trump fan...
I mean, that's ridiculous. Climate change is what it is. And there's skepticism around, can humans actually change climate change? That's the real issue. It's not about whether or not climate change is happening, but it's the skepticism is whether or not human beings can change what has actually been happening.
Okay, so let's carry on. Let's
billions of years.
Let's carry on at the rate.
There were no factories when climate change happened a billion years ago.
No. Well,
okay, you guys are going to go into a rabbit hole. We're not going to do that. Are you guys matching?
No.
You are. That's so cute.
Pink. That's apparently salmon. That's not pink in his mind.
It's pink and blue, maybe.
That's navy. This is blue.
Or do you have another name for navy?
No, it's perfectly fine. But we must acknowledge that it's actually, he's got somebody working on his wardrobe. It's not his. These are not his choices.
What are you drinking?
Okay, so I'm having some.
You're having some teas, I see.
Yes, exactly. English wine tea and afternoon tea, and that's what I'm going to have on a hot summer day in Africa.
Well,
we're
going to
dignify that with a comment.
Yeah, we're having the quintessential summer drink in
this part of the world.
In this part of the world, and everywhere in the world during summer, beer is a thing. And
or you just forgot to buy your whiskey.
No, on hot days we actually drink beer,
and it's like 31 degrees today.
It was 33 when I drove in.
So yeah, this is a safe choice. And
I'm going with
Castle double malt.
With the Castle double malt, which I've had on the show before. I love its taste, particularly ice cold on a hot summer afternoon, and although it's quite a strong.
Yes. What's the alcohol content? 5%.
4.8.
4.8. Ah, okay. Yeah.
So we'll see how it's going by the end of the show. Eh? And you, what are you having?
I'm having a light beer. A vinegar lager is only 4%. So you can literally drink this all day.
So I've got a question for you guys. How do you get over the terrible smell of beer?
The beautiful smell.
Terrible.
That's horrible.
Well, you know the saying that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And I love the smell of Vindoc.
It's a beautiful smell.
Yeah, it's just phenomenal.
Smell and sight are very different things.
Yes, they are.
It's a beautiful smell.
We love the smell of beer.
Okay. So beer tingles all your senses. Eh?
Oh, really?
Yes. Sight. I mean, look at it. What a sight to behold.
You know, I can actually agree with you that when you look at the sight, the proportions, the color looks lovely, but the smell.
The smell is beautiful. The sound of a bottle opening or a can opening.
It's phenomenal.
Music to the ears.
Maybe we should ask the significant others in your lives.
What's this got to do with them?
If they think that the smell is just right.
What's this got to do with them?
What we should do with Tinashe, because on my bucket list is a trip to Oktoberfest where they celebrate the culture of beer, and they explain it much more articulately than we could.
And you think it will excite me?
I don't think it will excite you, but I think it will change your perspective.
I've been to a couple of Oktoberfests. You'll enjoy it. Okay. Anyway, let's get back
maybe to the festivities. Definitely, I'm up for the festivities.
It's not East Africa. it's Oktoberfest is in Munich, Germany.
The festivities. I'm always up for the festivities, but not for...
Anyway, can we go back to why we're here?
Yeah, sure.
So, in the news this week, Zimstat releases the inflation numbers. Inflation's coming down. It's come down from 280% to 268.8. Is that correct?
Yeah.
and 3% per month.
Yeah.
So, Manguj and Tuli are winning.
And so it seems.
Look, I think we've touched on the trend and whether it's sustainable and whether it speaks to a change of direction in terms of policy, in terms of more fiscal discipline. And I think some of the other things in the news this week give us more color in terms of understanding the inflation figures better. And it seems, so there's also been a pre-budget seminar, and it looks like
And the ministers showed up.
the line ministers, pretty much all of them, have the same complaint, that they're not getting the funding that they
Were promised.
need to actually run their ministries and deliver the outcomes that they.
So I'm going to stop you there because you guys just talked over each other, but you said two important but different points. So you said they didn't get the money they need. You said they didn't get the money they were promised. Explain.
Yeah. So over the last 3 months, and I think part of it is why inflation has come down, is that contractors have not been paid by central government. So that's some form of price control, if you think about it, because that money should have been availed to the different ministries. They didn't get it.
But this is more than 3 months, right? If you listen to the Minister of Health, who's also the Vice President, they've only received 5 billion out of the 15 they were promised. So this can't be an issue of the last 3 months. This is something that has been going on
Well, the
since
last 3
beginning of the
months
year.
is when government actually halted the payments. But you're quite right that this has been going on, but where it has been going on beyond the 3 months was literally a misallocation. That's certain, and I think we talked about it last year. When you look at budget utilization, the Ministry of Health is way
Under budget.
subsidized by the donors, but the actual budget, they actually not spending the money that they were allocated.
Oh,
So-
when you say they're subsidized by the donors, the Minister of Health said they only managed to get 14% of the medicines they need.
Yeah.
1/4.
Some level of subsidy. Obviously not entirely what they require, right? Because their needs are huge. But what we're trying to say is that there are two things, and we need to be very careful about. The first thing is misallocation.
Well, according to
of
Tinashe, we
resources.
need to be very careful about everything. But anyway, I'll grant you that.
It helps in life. Be careful. But then I don't drink beer, so yeah.
But you wear
anyway,
big trousers.
Someone behind the curve, George.
Get it. So the first thing is the misallocation of resources, where government is actually spending, but it has decided, where to spend it and command agriculture and not on health. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is where it actually literally stops spending, where it's not spending on command agriculture, it's not spending on health. So those are two effects. And those two effects have something to do with how inflation has come down, especially the month-to-month, to 3.2%. And I think it's just kicking the can down the road. If you think about it, at a future date, so we've come to a growing season, and they need to spend on salaries, on Fumvudza. All that expenditure is going to come through in November and December, and we'll start seeing inflation starting to creep up. Then you've got an election coming in next year. It's not looking good, is all I can say.
So you look in your crystal ball and prophesying that Mtuli can't keep this up.
I actually don't need to prophesy. You just need to go into your model and see month on month coming down to 0%. Even at 0%, inflation will still be above 200%. It will still be the highest in the world.
On an annual basis, but
On
on
an
a
annual
monthly
basis.
basis, it'll be in line with others.
That's if you believe that it's possible for us to have 0% month on month. But I'm just saying, I'm stretching the model. And I'm actually saying that if you put month on month for the next 3 months at 0%, right, inflation will still be above 220 to 30%.
Yes, but that's what Mtuli said, that it will lag until about August next year and then it will come down.
Yeah, look, we've heard these forecasts before.
Yeah.
So I think that on the basis of the track record of Treasury with their focus in terms of where we're going to be in 6 months or a year. I would respectfully say that we have no business taking them seriously.
No, but guys, I'm going to push back a little bit, and I'm actually, I'm going to be a little bit
optimistic.
And pro Mtuli on this one.
Can I change your mind with one?
No, but please push back,
because they've controlled expenditure. They've done it for 3 months. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they can continue to do this. You assume that they'll splurge on command. What if they don't?
We're saying that the way they've gone about it is not sustainable, because the ministries themselves are saying we're now starved of the essentials. If Ministry of Health is saying we're starved of drugs, those are essentials.
People aren't dying, so
it's working. I'll tell you, an aggregate demand has come off. But I'll tell you what Mtuli is trying to do. Why he's worried.
In your words, aggregate demand coming off, in your words, is a correction.
Yeah, no, it is. But I moved away from that argument because I want to put an argument that you might love, and you, the accountants, might actually love.
We are not accountants.
Okay. Zimra revenue. They're actually expecting that revenue collections will be $1.6 trillion for this year.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, they were expecting 800 billion, right? So they're expecting that
It'll double.
It will double. That is way lower than our official exchange rate. Now, if you use
inflation rate.
or even
the projection, not the current official inflation, because if you assume that inflation is going to persist at these levels, then that's actually an improvement, from 280% or 268%. But doubling is still significantly higher than Treasury's forecast.
Yeah, Treasury's forecast, right? But I'm saying last year you collected 800 million. Get this. Last year you collected 800 million.
In a particular quarter, right?
No. The entire year. 800 billion.
Okay, sorry.
800 billion.
Zim
The
dollars.
entire year.
Zim
dollars, yeah.
I'm confusing currencies.
Last year you collected 800 billion in the entire year. And this year, even with your assumption that you're going to beat your own record, you're only collecting 1.6. Double.
Yes, so there's 100% growth.
There's 100% growth. But inflation is?
But the forecast for inflation is 50%.
No, because we're running at 200%. I understand where he's going with the argument. Yes, we're running at 260% inflation.
260% inflation. So your collections are way lower than the inflation rate. That is what Mtuli is worried about. That's where the panic is coming from.
No, but it's
that actually the revenues.
But in your words, it's a correction. We're all having to adjust
and make cuts.
No, I want to make good that argument. Now, it can only be a correction if government itself believes it's a correction, right? So if the government comes out and says to the ministries, to the line ministries, and to everybody in this economy, it's not about paying the contractors. We're actually not going to pay the contractors.
That's what they've said.
Because we don't have the money.
Well, they found a different story, but they said we're not going to pay them, and they're not paying them. And
that's the story.
If you want to get paid, you must reduce your invoice and come talk to us nicely.
So George, the argument becomes: do you believe government?
Why not?
Oh, okay. Then
okay, I'll tell you why not to believe them. And if they've pivoted and are going to cut and spend significantly less, right? Then now's the perfect time to actually float the currency and start raising money to restructure our debt, right?
Why
because
would
you know that
a currency without reserves.
Well, look, it'll only go one way.
It's effectively floated, right? That's why we have a power market. Now,
it's not floating.
No. So the power market is basically where
it can't be floating at 60%, 60 to 80% of the forex receipts go through a control market.
No. I hear you, but what I'm saying is, so the reason why there's a premium on the power market is because it's not only because it's an illegal market, but because it also reflects correctly the supply demand dynamics.
I don't think it does.
No.
Because the power market is smaller than the official market.
So, okay, in your mind, if the rate was floated tomorrow, why would it not? Where do you think it will land? At a premium to where the power market is today, or at a discount?
At a premium.
Why a premium?
I think it will land at a discount.
Oh my gosh. So the first thing is, if you were to freely float everybody was holding their US dollars. So the exporters right now, their biggest complaint is, you're giving me Zim dollars that I have absolutely no use for. So if you give those guys their US dollars, don't think that they're going to go back into the pyro market or whatever rate is to exchange. They're just going to use their US dollars to make their imports. That's number one. They're going to hold on. Now, the second thing, and more pertinent, is government will now come onto the pyro market to get US dollars. Because right now they do so through expropriation. So they force you. They take your dollars and they use your dollars. Now imagine the central bank, because it doesn't have reserves, having to pay, 25 million to Afreximbank as interest payment. Now coming onto the market and looking, because it's now a free market, and looking for the 25 million because they have to pay that on the 30th of every month. Imagine that. Because right now they benefit from actually confiscating it from.
Look, I think we're speculating, but I think what's important is that
that's exactly what will happen.
I think what's important is it's not floated. Floating it without reserves, without a means to defend it, guarantees that it goes only in one direction.
No, I beg to differ. Okay, so I think that the price of any commodity is a function of supply and demand. I think we can all agree on that. Yeah, and do you think that if the currency is floated, the demand for US dollars is going to increase from where it is today?
No, but the supply will shrink.
Why?
Because why? If I'm not bound by the law or regulation, why would I exchange my US dollars for Zim dollars?
Okay,
with 200% inflation.
No. So I think you guys are conflating floating the currency and changing the retention policy.
No, but you can't.
You can't have one.
You can't have not the other.
Why not?
Because then it's not floated.
Sorry?
Then it's not floated.
No. So.
No more beer for you.
Hear me out.
Okay, let's hear the argument.
Right. So if you're an exporter today and you export a dollar, right, immediately on receipt of that dollar, the retention kicks in and you are handed Zim dollars at the official exchange rate, right? Mm-hmm. And the problem with that is that the exchange rate does not fairly reflect the value of
I see where you're going with
your hard currency.
Okay, so you're talking about the South African type of exchange regime.
And that's why you need reserves. So let me pose the argument, or let me extend your argument. That's why you need reserves, because this is what will happen. So the same guy, he gets his Zim dollars, right? But he wants to import. So he goes back to the same market. So you've given him Zim dollars. Then he says, oh, okay, fine. But I actually want to import. Mm-hmm. So can I please have US dollars? Mm-hmm. Do you think you will get those US dollars?
Why not? You see, okay, let me okay.
That's why you remove the.
Let me also present,
right? Because where would he get? Because there's more demand for US dollars than there is supply of US dollars. We haven't been paying our debts.
Yeah, but one of the reasons why in our market there's much more demand for US dollars than supply is because we have an auction system that effectively subsidizes US dollars. So no, but still it's a 20% plus discount.
Okay, forget current demand.
Yeah,
we have $17 billion of debt. This was in the newspaper this week. It's not, I think it's about 20.
Let's call it 20. Let's be conservative.
Okay, no, don't do that. It doesn't work well for your argument.
No, it's fine. I have high conviction.
So let's say we have about 15 billion that is overdue, which is all the international multilateral and bilateral creditors plus the legacy debt. Whatever we say about the legacy debt, it's overdue, right?
Yeah.
So you got this 15 billion that you say, this is money that we owe people and they want it now.
Agreed.
We're not going to import anything, right? We are just, whatever foreign currency we earn, we're going to pay our debts. And we make about 9 billion a year. How long will it take us to pay our debt?
Look, I think you're conflating things here. There is that debt, whether it's 15 billion or 20 billion, we have been in default and arrears for the longest time. That's not the question here. What we're saying is, what should we use as an exchange rate? right? We don't have any reserves, I agree.
So no, we're going back to the issue of floating
Right,
a currency.
and I'm saying we are better off floating it.
No, so you're talking about a partial deregulation of the currency. It's not.
I'm just talking about floating it.
No, because if it's floated, South African Airways, which has got, I hear $70 million stuck in this country,
Exactly,
should go to their bank and say, look,
I want my money.
You guys owe me $70 million.
I want my money.
I want to send it to South Africa.
Okay, so call it a partial, call it whatever terminology you choose. What I'm saying is
critical.
Yeah.
And this is the point. I'm glad you come to that. That actually of the 17 or 20 billion, we're not worried about that. What we're really worried about is the 3 billion legacy debt. It's not four enough. The four
or whatever the number is.
Whatever. Even if it's
even if
it's 100 million, if you float the exchange rate tomorrow,
all those guys will be at their bank.
You have to
tomorrow
pay
morning.
And now you're saying the exporter who exchanged his money can still come into that market and get his US dollars at the same rate.
He's got to outbid these guys. And he will, because he's got to stay in business. But also those guys have written off that debt.
Okay. I think we're not hearing each other, because what I'm suggesting is that the mechanism for pricing our currency, which is currently the auction, is broken.
Yeah, we're agreeing.
Yeah, and I am saying
we need a better one.
Would we not be better off if if the auction actually worked as advertised? If you could walk in tomorrow with a bid,
it'll go in one direction. Yeah. But we've got to go for a break now. Okay. So let this guy go and powder his nose. Do you have another pair of pants that's less offensive?
I quite like these.
Anyway, we'll see you in a couple of minutes anyway. And we're back, and you guys led me into a rabbit hole. The discussion was supposed
to be fun.
The discussion was always supposed to be about the budget. So, sorry, no, it wasn't about the budget. You guys made me talk about the budget. It was about inflation. So, inflation remains high. We're not sure whether you guys think it's Tuli's not going to win this war. I'm not sure. Maybe he might, maybe he might not. But what does this mean for everybody in this country? What does it mean for businesses? What does it mean for households? What does it mean for people at the bottom of the pyramid?
Servers. And if you think about it, there's no asset class that has outperformed inflation, right?
The stock market hasn't?
No, it hasn't, for sure. Not this year.
Do you know what the TB rate is?
It's
18%.
It's abysmal.
Do you know what the NCD rate is from the central bank?
What's NCDs?
Yeah.
Non-negotiable. Oh, that's zero.
Certificate of deposit.
That's zero.
It's zero. So if you think about it, no one is keeping up with inflation. And then when aggregate demand has come off for a lot of the companies, I think we're in an extremely precarious position. Because if aggregate demand has come off, Zimra cannot keep up with their revenues. There is no asset class that's performing above inflation. Then you have
a correction. A recession.
Yes, actually. And it
He
is.
doesn't like the word recession. He says
It's a correction. I actually agree. It's a correction. But can
I'm enjoying this.
Oh, yeah,
Have you noticed
yeah,
throwing this word back at you?
no, which is perfectly fine. Can they take it in, to the long haul? I mean, this is something that Rishi Sunak is coming to terms with. That when you have a correction is not 3 months.
No, so
2 years.
So the Ghanaian finance minister was right.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So can, especially going towards an election, can we hold the line for as long as we need to? I don't think so. That's my perspective. But you're quite right. What it is just a correction. There was something that's fundamentally wrong in our economy, and it's the economy
Which is
just
spending too much.
spending too much.
And printing money.
Yeah. Well, what starts is the
Spending
the
too much.
spending too much, and then you try to print money to cover that gap, and you have this mess, hot mess.
So what does it mean for you and me?
I think this is where the consumer suffers the most. The worker suffers the most because most of, believe it or not, while 70% of our economy, or 80% or 90%, if you believe George, is dollarized, most of our employees actually get paid in Zim dollars, and some half-half. If you're a civil servant, it's half-half. So what it means is your Zim dollar earnings have been washed off by inflation. And in fact, over the last, call it 6 months, literally washed away by inflation in the last 6 months. So you can't keep up. And then you have insurance companies. I wonder, I don't know how.
Do you really want
insurance
to go
companies
down that rabbit hole? You and I have taken a beating on social media.
I think this is a reality
last
that
week.
we must talk about. That insurance companies will not be able to keep up with inflation. And this is, the other thing that people don't realize is, when did we start using officially the US dollars?
COVID.
Official US
Oh,
dollar
this time
premiums.
around.
This time around, it's like 2 years.
During COVID, yeah.
Do you think inflation, US dollar inflation, has actually gone up? So the premiums are just not enough, And what happens to the premiums that you were paying in Zim dollars before that? Zilch, nothing.
But
this is a real problem.
When you pay a premium, you're not buying equity in anything. You're just paying for cover for a very specific time frame.
But okay, and we're gonna go down a rabbit hole, but perhaps it's worth it for a bit. The thing with banks and insurance companies is that they de-risk their customers. They absorb the risk that their customers would ordinarily carry from the economy. And they absorb that risk in their capital. So when your bank is profitable, we all hate to see our bank profitable and our bankers driving nice cars, but it actually means that your bank has the ability to absorb shocks in a down cycle. So in a down cycle where a lot of loans go bad, if the bank has made money in the past,
Reserves.
it uses its reserves to compensate its depositors. So the depositors don't know that there was a problem. But if the bank has just been coasting along and not making money, in a down cycle, when loans go bad, the bank goes bust and the depositors lose out.
But where a bank is actually better off than an insurance
Well,
company?
let me explain.
Yeah.
With insurance companies, it's the same. So if I insure my beer against Rufaro stealing it, every day that Rufaro doesn't steal my beer and I'm paying my insurance company is building up the capacity to pay me out on the inevitable day that Rufaro will steal my beer.
Yep.
But if every day that my beer doesn't get stolen, the money I gave my insurance company gets eroded, it means tomorrow they're starting again from point
And
zero.
this is the point I wanted to make, to highlight the difference between a bank and an insurance company, is that the bank, the replacement almost happens immediately, right? Whereas with an insurance company, you went into a contract where you actually said, no, your premiums are going to be X amount. So it doesn't happen immediately that your premiums just automatically reprice. They don't. Whereas deposits, by their very nature, automatically.
Well, not in this country. Not in this country because the things are regulated.
But the other point I wanted to make is people forget that what COVID did, going back to your reserves, COVID, if you're an insurance company, no matter where you are in the world, wiped off all your reserves. COVID, the nature of COVID, if you're looking at the number of people who died during COVID, if you're an insurance company, whether it's life or it's funeral, you buried a lot more people. Now, these are 3 years that we went through where you're burying a lot more people than you anticipated. So your reserves are wiped off. Now, post-COVID, guess what's happening? US dollar inflation. So if you're a Nyaradzo, for example, you promise to give people a bus and fuel. But the price of fuel last year has doubled, right? But your guy is expecting, because he's been paying for the last 20 years, he's expecting a service.
And your bus is now 10 years old. You thought you were going to buy a new bus this year. But anyway, we're going to get into trouble for this.
So it's not getting into trouble, but I think it's financial literacy, right?
we are going to get into trouble.
But I think it's important that people understand that if they think they're going to retire and they will be okay, then they're fooling themselves. What we have is a perfect tsunami, and it's going to hit almost everybody. Whether you're a capitalist, you're rich, you're middle class, or you're poor. But mostly the poor, they're the ones who are going to be hit by this inflation tsunami the hardest. Is you're going to retire and you won't have a single cent.
And I think we've spoken about this, Tinashe, previously on the show, where we've said, so what do you do? And we've concluded that what you need to do is buy the things that you need for your retirement now.
Yeah.
So move away from a monetary investment.
And maturing investment.
Yeah. And I mean, look, there's this whole kerfuffle that's been on social media this week. I think everybody knows about it. And some people have been saying, so maybe I should buy my own coffin. It's actually not a bad idea.
It's actually not.
But believing that you can put your money somewhere and it's going to maintain value. When the government is insisting on prescribed assets, when the government is regulating interest rates.
George, you know what the funniest thing is if today I come to you and I say, I'm willing to insure you for a payout of 10,000 in 20 years, will you buy it? Will you buy it?
If you're good for it.
In which currency?
No, even if it's US dollars in this country.
No, but I mean, if I'm confident that you can deliver the 10,000.
Yeah.
No.
But then currency is more likely going to change.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. What's my level of confidence
in the country? Just in the country, it's got nothing to do with me, right?
No,
during the GNU, know that a lot of policies were sold that were US dollar policies. And at the time,
because we were using US dollars.
Then there was a law.
Then there was a law.
Let's say 133, 33.
Yeah, 133, and it changes everything.
The law made it illegal for your insurance company to pay you in US dollars.
Changes everything.
Yeah. And for me, when I look at all this debate and discussion around what's happening in the insurance sector, I think we're not having it at the right level. We're talking about specific companies and specific transactions, and I think the appropriate level to actually have the debate and discussion is at a macroeconomic level. To say
that's what we've been doing for the last 5 minutes.
Well, you haven't been particularly articulate. So allow me to distill it.
Thank you.
Please.
Like a 6-year-old.
Yeah. So the problem is, if you've got a currency that has lost 99% plus of its value in the last 3 to 5 years, and a policy framework that is changing all the time.
5 times in 10 years.
And the banks and insurance companies are highly regulated, and they are affected in the most dramatic fashion by this devaluation of the currency, by the chopping and changing in policy. It's I think the problem is not with the industry, whether it's the banks or the insurance sector, it's with the policymaker, because the wealth transfer is happening through hyperinflation, through policy changes. And you can jump up and down and say, look, I'm not happy with this particular policy from this particular company. But chances are, across the market, you don't have better options, because the problem is not at the individual market player level. It's at a macroeconomic level. And until we sort that out, there are going to be unhappy, horrible experiences from bank customers,
Inflation is a
from
cancer.
insurance customers.
Inflation affects
Everybody.
everybody. Look, in a normal country, pensions are designed so that your quality of life doesn't really change when you retire. It's not true in this country. No matter what you've done. My parents are retired, and I think they planned very well for their retirement relative to most people. But their quality of life has taken a knock, because they've invested in physical assets. They've invested in...
They should have just doubled the number of kids they had.
Yeah, actually...
the world would have more people like George. I don't know whether it would be a better place.
Yeah, so look...
And that's the point. We need to have more kids. That's a better insurance policy.
Good luck to you. So I think, look, you've got the macro issue. But also I think the financial service players, I'm not one of them anymore, but you are, I think have done an abysmal job.
Absolutely.
Of explaining this, not only to their customers, but also
pushing back
to policymakers. Because I don't think policymakers understand this.
Yeah, they need to push back hard. But for whatever reason, they've been complicit. They've been buying TBs at 18%. What are they thinking?
Yeah, but whose capital? When you say they're buying TBs,
but you've got a
it's their capital. It's their capital.
You've got a fiduciary duty.
I mean, in your day-to-day business, are you as wealthy as your predecessors were?
Of course not. The economy is doing much worse than it was 20 years ago.
So it's hit your capital. If you're a fund manager managing a pension, you think you're okay with your twin cap. If you actually look in the books 20 years back, your predecessors had Mercs. We all worse off. Have we all collectively, or you guys, I'm no longer in financial services. I do something completely different now. But have you guys collectively gone to the policymakers and illustrated to them the nature of the problem? Have you gone to your customers and illustrated them?
You're preaching to the choir when you talk about pushing back and engaging the policymaker about what's not working. And I think that there's this attitude in the business community, not just in finance and insurance, but across the board. So the miners, the manufacturers, the tourist industry, everybody in business thinks that when there's a policy that's not working, to actually issue a statement or to push back and say, you know what, guys, this isn't working, they think that that's being rude. They think that they should have polite conversations over tea and point out that maybe, it's not really working. Let's, can we not?
But okay, fine.
And I've never been in that.
Okay, fine. You're scared. You're scared to get arrested, but why don't you explain to your customers?
So, firstly, I think that that risk, the environment has changed. I think we live in a much more open and free environment post the coup that was not a coup. So
do you sense a bit of sarcasm?
but it vexes me, quite honestly, why that conversation doesn't happen, honestly, because I think that, and it doesn't matter who the personalities are holding public office, if the economy is doing better, the politicians will do better, right? And the business community will also do better. So it's a win-win, right? To have that conversation to say, look, you know what, guys, policy XYZ is not working. Why don't we try ABC instead? I am vexed. I am constantly flabbergasted by the extent of silence.
You're spitting out some big words.
And
what's in this bottle?
Yeah, it's a really smooth Namibian beer. But yeah, I'm constantly vexed that we have policy action that makes all of us poorer, and
including the politician,
and the industry and businesses that are hurt the most, right? Where you would expect the most pushback, where you would expect them to make some noise and say, you know what, guys, let's do things differently. Are not given to saying anything. They are much more comfortable just getting poorer. It vexes me.
And I think we should stop before we form a political party.
That's never going to happen.
Maybe our color would be pink. Simon. Give us a couple of minutes and we'll be right back.
Sawira huya timburangana timburunga tichinemkana andirambe isheni novuma kana mati yangu nguva yagwana sawira huya timburangana timburunga tichinemkana daita isivara mangwana taingovunza ndewani mugana dainda isivara mangwana taingovunza nderani jana sawira huya timborangana timboronga tichinemgana sawira huya timborangana timboronga tichinemgana daita isivara mangwana taingovunza ndewani mugana dainda isivara mangwana taingovunza nderani jana sawira huya timborangana timboronga tichinemgana.
And we're back. Are you sufficiently refreshed?
Yeah, I believe so.
You insist on wearing your pink pants?
Yeah.
Been to the loo?
I'm a very happy camper.
I got a new beer. Listen to this. Listen.
It's a wonderful sound.
I can understand that, but it's just the smell. Don't get it.
One day.
We'll
win you over.
Okay.
We'll take you to Oktoberfest.
But you know what? If I do turn 100, I will have a beer.
Oh my gosh.
I can think of 100 reasons why you're not going to make it to 100. Anyway, so here we are. We've got a huge debt problem. And the government has said so itself in the newspaper. There's just not enough money to go around. So all the ministers are saying this in the preparation for the new budget. We know that in the past, to balance the books, we've had to print money, which has led to inflation. For now, we're not doing the same. And Mtuli is polishing up his numbers. Does Mtuli do it or does George do it?
I have no idea.
Well, they do it together.
Yeah. Let's just assume that
They do it together.
It's Treasury that does it.
Yeah. Okay, so they're polishing up their numbers. Very soon they're going to need to present a budget to Parliament. If you were in the room and you had the opportunity to give some sage advice.
Look, I think that they've actually said all of the right things, but not done them. So at the very beginning of his tenure, there was talk of privatizing all the parastatals that are hemorrhaging the state and us taxpayers. That didn't happen.
But he's not going to do that between now and January.
Why not?
I agree with you.
We're just talking about the advice that we would give, right? We're not saying it's going to happen.
No, but if you're going to give him advice for what he must do in his budget that takes effect on 1 January.
Cut the civil service, cut the subsidies, GMB, privatize GMB. I quite agree with him. There's everything, just privatize it. Yes. It's actually, because we have 20-year-old papers on this. There's actually nothing stopping us.
Yes, this week,
right?
You guys talked about it, Today in History. In 2007, ISM was looking for money.
Yeah, so, I mean, look, South Africa is a much bigger, more sophisticated, better run economy than ours. And they probably had the capacity to continue to fund SAA indefinitely. But they said, you know what?
They cannot.
It doesn't make sense. Let's let this thing go, right? So there's precedent. And I think...
No, but I think you guys are being idealistic in
Okay,
terms
so-
of what can be achieved.
No, we're saying, okay, so if you're a minister, what you're interested in is policy,
Yes.
right? So the policy must be, we're cutting out all the subsidies.
But what does he
Then
do?
immediately, the Command Agriculture, Fumbudza, cut all that. The civil service cut the civil service. And you could start with things like the military and, auxiliary services, where we're not at war at all. And we can cut that.
This guy wants to get us in trouble.
We're just being honest, right? And then GMB, privatize GMB tomorrow. Do you know that if we privatize GMB tomorrow, we would save the fiscus probably close to $1 billion because of the cross subsidies that happen at GMB and the corruption that just happens at GMB. And the reporting structure in GMB is not suitable because it's ministers who manage GMB. It shouldn't be managed by ministers. It should be a private entity and run by private entity. And if I were the minister, and which is policy will be privatized. If I'm George, I'm willing to sell GMB
Not
for
this
$1.
George.
Yeah, Guamatanga. I'm willing to sell GMB for $1 because what you save the fiscus by selling GMB for $1 is worth a whole lot more. Remember what happened last year when we had a bumper harvest? Yes, it didn't get to 2.7.
What happened to it?
It got to 1.5, maybe 1.6 if we're generous, but it doesn't matter. But you had the central bank paying farmers, paying GMB. Why is the central bank paying farmers? That should never happen, right? Similarly, we're going to find that's what's going to happen with our wheat, that eventually it's the central bank that's going to pay
What do you mean
the
eventually?
farmers. Well, already it's happening. But these are the cross subsidies that we just need to take away. So if I'm minister, the first thing is, from a policy perspective, is zero subsidies. Zero subsidies. Now, the only subsidy that I will agree to temporarily has to do with education. So I will, give some sort of reprieve and say that, okay, we do have kids that cannot afford and we're willing to support them. But that's as far as we will go. That's from a policy
And how would you
perspective.
support them?
I think we've talked about this through the Ministry of Social Welfare, and not directly.
Okay.
And I kind of agree with you, but I do it differently. I would, first of all, properly fund the Public Service Commission. It's inhumane to have people that work for us, and the civil service work for us as a population. It's inhumane to have people that work for us earning below a living wage. So let's get that right. Then let's properly
If we're a socialist.
let's properly fund.
What's the living wage?
Look, let's and then let's properly fund the Ministry of Social Welfare, and then let's defund everything else. Cut back government.
Sounds like a woke catchphrase. Defund everything else.
Let's have government cut back to its core functions, and everything else must be on a user pays basis.
I agree to that.
And those who cannot afford, because we've properly funded Ministry of Social Welfare, those who cannot afford
Should line up.
should line up at the Ministry of Social Welfare.
We can see them.
They convince us that they can't afford and they're vulnerable or whatever, and they get a chitty or a coupon or whatever it is that entitles them.
The donors, that's a very transparent manner of doing it. So the donors can
also
actually
come in.
fund.
But even if
the
the government
program.
comes in, right? So let's go back to the GMB example, right? So right now we're funding, and I use this example, I now have, when we last talked about this, I had 5 dogs. Then I had 6. Then we got 4 puppies. I now have 10 dogs. And
Are you a dog collector?
I like dogs. And it's cheap. They get funded by the government.
Subsidized. Yeah, they're subsidized by government. The maize is subsidized.
So my dog meal is subsidized by the government.
That's actually interesting. Let's look at the dog population in Zimbabwe.
So,
It's probably increased. And we're importing the maize, by the way,
yes,
to feed your dogs.
So my dogs are eating imported maize that is subsidized by the government. So take that away and give me the correct cost of feeding my dogs. And I probably won't have so many. But
I can't believe a guy has 10 dogs because of government policy. You're right.
But if there is a family that genuinely cannot afford mini meal to make sadza, the Ministry of Social Welfare should be able to help. So I think, and for me, that's something that Mutuli can do in one budget by reallocating the resources. One thing that he probably can't do by January, but he can do a little bit, but during the course of the year, is to split up GMB. I wouldn't completely privatize GMB because there's a strategic grain reserve aspect to it. Let's separate it. Let's split it up.
Unpack the strategic
nature honestly,
for us.
Can I finish? It's linked to the social welfare aspect. Have your strategic grain reserve, but all you need for a strategic
Why
grain
do you need to
reserve.
own
Can
it?
I finish my point and then you can attack me?
Yes, I think me and Tinashe will feel so much better if you arrive at your point.
Yes, if you let me. But all you need for a strategic grain reserve is a trading floor.
Does America have a strategic grain reserve?
So you have a few people that buy and sell maize, and they figure out how to store it and whatever. But all the other operations...
But government is no longer part of it.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'd split it up. So the government would keep the strategic grain reserve.
No, why
to what end? To what end? What purpose?
Because we'll feel better knowing that we've got food.
In
No,
reserve.
but you will know.
Yes.
No.
That is run by the government.
Yes.
That has been running agriculture for the last 20 years.
Yes, but we've at least isolated that.
But it's not like the maize is going anywhere, right? We will know. We will know how much grain we actually have in the country, right? The market players will actually store the grain, and they will feed the nation.
The
Ministry of Social Welfare now, what it will do is it will actually buy the grain, and they will actually negotiate a better deal.
Okay, so what I'm right? So in a way we're agreeing. So you're saying, okay, the strategic grain reserve must be run for the Ministry of Social Welfare.
No.
Let's not.
They must
Why
pay.
do we need a strategic
No,
grain
they
reserve
will go
in the
to the
first
millers.
instance?
It's not like they're buying grain anyway. They're buying, mill, right? So they will go to the millers and buy mill from the millers.
Do you think over the last 20 years, GMB has been paying the optimal price for grain when we've had to import? And we've imported about 1 million tons of grain.
When they import, they're pretty competitive. It's when they buy from local farmers that they're not.
Okay. So if that sector was opened up to the market, right, and anybody could buy and sell grain, do you think that if you're willing to pay the market price, you'd have any trouble getting grain?
No, there's big traders that exist only to do this.
Right then.
So why would you need a strategic reserve if at any point in time you could buy as much grain as you wanted?
We feel better. We feel better just knowing that we've got it.
And I think what Mtuli should change our mindsets, the country's mindset, and say, you know what, this is,
should we be setting policy
the railways
on the
are
basis
not going
we'll
anywhere.
feel better?
The roads are not going anywhere.
I mean, seriously.
Maize is not going anywhere.
Should we be setting policy because we get this warm, fuzzy feeling when we do certain things?
Well, unfortunately...
Or we go to cabinet and we say, our strategic reserves
Unfortunately, this is what politics is about.
No, but we're not
about
talking,
how we feel.
We're not talking politics. We're talking as technocrats. If we were advising Treasury, why would we advise them anything on the basis that it would give us a warm, fuzzy feeling?
Because at least then they can sell the other stuff.
Do you know what happens? When you have a strategic reserves, it means that you have a buyer and a ready buyer. And that's actually bad for the market. Because now every farmer now knows I should just produce because there's a ready buyer. No. And the market
I don't think it necessarily means that. And we're going into a rabbit hole of how to set up a strategic reserve. It doesn't necessarily mean that.
How would you set it up?
That's why I said it's just a trading floor. If you have a bunch of traders that are just trading the market for the purpose of optimizing the grain reserve, it doesn't mean that a farmer is guaranteed a buy.
Well, because if you're saying strategic, then you have a minimum. And if I know that the minimum is low, then I can actually speculate right?
Yes, and that's
'Cause
fine.
And so
government shouldn't be part
but
of that.
but also I think that if we're going to think about reserves, right, what we should actually do is save money and have foreign currency reserves and have gold in a vault.
Absolutely.
So that whatever problem emerges that's unexpected, we have capacity to deal with it, right? Because gold is versatile, foreign currency
But
is
you don't
versatile.
even need to.
You can have a problem that's
I
not
actually
grain.
disagree. I actually disagree. Grain is a commodity. It's like oil. There's never a time when you don't have oil everywhere around the world. So what will happen if you have the right policy and government is not there? It's the millers themselves that will import the grain for you. So government is actually not
and
part
their
of it.
trading flows will optimize.
And their trading flows will be optimized. They will actually go into futures. They would know. They will actually invest more.
But I don't know
in
why.
understanding
I don't know why you think you're
what's
disagreeing
happening.
with Rufaro. You guys are actually in agreement.
No, I'm saying that the Reserve Bank or our reserves, we should not in any way buy.
Have them in grain. We should have gold. We should have foreign
even-
currency.
No, foreign currency as far as supporting our importers.
Import
yes.
cover, yes.
Import cover, I agree, as far as that's concerned. But it shouldn't be in any way
but if
related to grain.
But if you, you just not listening. You've got a point to make, and you're not listening to what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
And if you extend what he's saying, you've got the Reserve Bank having its reserves, but the government or the Treasury, to the extent to which it's an economic player like anybody else, like all of us,
Should have savings.
should have savings.
No, they should have a budget surplus.
And what you do with it?
Yes.
Those
Budget-
are your savings.
Yes, those are your savings. But there's
So we're not in disagreement.
No, we're not. But your budget surplus just means that you're spending less than you're
Yes, so
making.
But you're not disagreeing with Rufaro.
No, I'm not. I'm just disagreeing with the idea that you have.
There has to be a disagreement somewhere.
You can't accept that you're in agreement.
But no, we are.
Okay, so we are kind of aligned on what Mutuli should do. We interrupted you on what you think Mutuli should do. Although I think you're being airy-fairy, but anyway,
I'm not
carry
offering-
on with your
And I actually
airy-fairy
agree
ideas.
with.
I'm saying the low hanging fruit
privatize.
is
Privatize everything.
You can't do that in 3 months. You can't buy a
No,
tuck
you
shop in
can.
3 months.
You can privatize tomorrow. If you put everything on auction, it doesn't matter. Even if you sell it for $1, the saving
Of not having it.
of not having it, the cross subsidies. So let me give you a good statistic that will blow your mind. Since February, since we introduced our new currency, our total money supply has moved from 10 billion in February to now 1.6 trillion.
No way.
And it's unbelievable.
That's one from 10 billion. That's 160 times.
Yes, unbelievable. And
No.
part of it, it's all these
No, those
subsidies.
figures can't be right.
Oh, do you know what our money supply is now?
You just said 1.6 trillion.
1.6 trillion. What was our money supply in February 2019?
I don't know.
10 billion.
Nah.
That's
In
the
2019.
reality.
Oh, no,
2019.
Not this year. Okay.
Yeah, no,
So
2019.
we've
In
got
3
160
years.
times the money that we had 3 years ago.
Exactly. And this is the problem. The problem is
And yet our GDP is the same.
Oh,
It
no,
actually
it's
went
less.
It went down and then
shrunk.
It went down and then came up.
It's now about 15 billion. Then it was about 19
No,
billion.
you didn't. We talked about this last week. Simstat said it's 21.
Come on. But the point we're trying to make is,
the point you are trying to make.
well, we're all trying to make. I'm trying to
Don't speak for me.
is there all these cross subsidies that we don't see in our goods market, but actually coming through in our monetary market, in our money markets. We don't see it in our goods market. That actually what's happening at GMB eventually has an impact on our money supply problem. And if we were to take away GMB with all its infrastructure for $1, and frankly, and this is to all Zimbabweans, I really don't care who gets the infrastructure. But sell it for $1, I'm telling you, you would have solved a
better
lot
off.
of problems. We are far better off.
So GMB is that old car that you have, and you keep trying to
That
fix
every
it.
year costs you more to service than the price that you paid for it.
And
Exactly.
maybe it's just better to give it to the mechanic.
No, to give it away.
Yes,
Give
to
it
the
away.
mechanic. Just give it and say, you know what, it's now yours. And
And a sensible mechanic might not take it.
No, the scrapyard might take it.
my-
Because you know what? There's an inherent risk that we're taking with GMB, that government is taking on behalf of taxpayers that we don't realize. And it's all this corruption, a lot of the cross subsidies, the entire value chain is problematic. And we are subsidizing GMB. And
Okay.
I think that we take it away.
Okay, but we're having GMB, but
Subsidizing is
there's
a very polite and generous way of putting it. Like, if GMB is bleeding all of us, that's what's happening.
okay.
We're not
Okay,
subsidizing.
but guys, we're making it very personal on GMB. GMB is just an example, I hope.
It's an easy example.
But you've got
But you've got
NRZ,
NRZ,
you've got ASM. Why do we own an airline?
Zinara, honestly.
Well, Zinara makes money.
Yeah, but still, this is the point. It makes on the P&L, it might make money, but we don't know what the cross subsidies have been. We actually don't know. We haven't quantified.
You see, so
But
if you think about
comes-
infrastructure, I think, he raises a valid point, right? If you think about infrastructure, if it makes sense
A private investor.
to dualize Bedbridge children, okay, and the traffic justifies the investment, a private investor will actually come in and say, you know what, I'll build this infrastructure as long as I can collect the tolls. And if it works out, more power to them. If it fails miserably, guess what? The taxpayers are
So
the buses are privatized.
Yes.
I mean, who
So
came
Zinara's
up with the Mbudzi interchange? I mean, honestly,
Okay, we don't
like
get into that.
somebody just woke up one
We're not
morning.
going to that,
said, you
'cause-
know what? I think it's a good idea that we have an.
No, we're not going to that. 'Cause you've already been attacked on social media for that, and I'm not
Okay.
going to join your
that bandwagon.
your hate club. But I mean, okay, basically, you're saying let's reduce entities like Zinara to regulators.
Yes. So if
Yeah.
you're going to build a road and collect tolls, you must
You
be
must do it
certain
within-
minimum
you must do it
standards.
within these parameters.
You can't abuse us, right? You agreed, but the risk taker should not be the state; it should be the private sector.
We're building an airport.
Okay. Anyway,
How many planes do we have that fly?
well, it's not entirely clear. Somebody says we bought some Brazilian planes. Somebody said we bought some Malaysian planes. It's not clear. But moving on, because we've got to end the show. This week is the 5th anniversary of Xi Jinping taking over the Chinese Communist Party, taking over, becoming the leader of the Chinese Communist
Well,
Party.
he became the leader in 2012. But anyway, carry on.
Okay, explain.
So they have a congress every 5 years, and so he recently got reappointed to an unprecedented third term. And
sorry,
5 years ago, in 2017, that was his
Other elections.
Second year.
Sorry,
his second term, but he became president for the first time in 2012.
correct. Thank
Yeah,
you
yeah,
for correcting
yeah.
that. The world's a better place, or not?
Look, I think that's an interesting question because there's this. If you look at the global stage, there's a dichotomy between the liberal world, which is led by the West, the Americans, the Europeans, South Korea, Japan, et al., and the illiberal world, which doesn't
Illiberal.
subscribe.
Is that a word?
Yes.
I think the word is conservative.
No, that's not conservative. They're illiberal. Okay. Okay, they don't practice.
Autocratic.
They don't practice democracy. They don't pretend to practice democracy.
Autocracy.
And the conventional wisdom, for the longest time, has been that democracy works much better than autocracy. And China has been a big thorn in the side of that argument from the perspective of people who believe that democracy is better. Because over the last 30, 40 years, they've lifted 600 million people out of abject poverty. They had between 1981 and 2011, that 30-year period, they had 30 years of consecutive growth above 10% per annum, which is an economic miracle. So the debate has been, maybe that model works better. And I think, the jury is still out. We're starting to see the economic growth in China slow. They've got some challenges.
But they still grow faster than us.
Well, okay.
A country with
They also fudge their numbers.
no, but in fairness, Tinashe, you and your school of thought in the magical 30-year period thought they were fudging them down, and now it suits you to think that they're fudging them up.
Yeah, but
No, they were fudging them up always.
but from from a comparison
But it doesn't matter.
standpoint, if you just look at Zimbabwe over the last 30, 40 years through the lens of economics, even if you go back to 1965, we're a basket case. You can't really compare us to anybody.
Can I say something about China that, far away from the ideology and ideological arguments, there's this idea called a meritocracy. And China, for all its sins as an autocratic nation, is actually very meritocratic. Right? And I think that's the biggest worry, is what Xi has done, it's what's going to happen now. Because all along it was meritocratic. If you look at the Politburo,
and he got there.
He got there as a meritocracy. And what he has kept, the Politburo that he has kept, usually there was a cut-off edge and people would go. Those guys are now... So that's my worry.
So he's regressed.
Is the merit still going to be with...
He's regressed to Mao's days.
Well, that's exactly what he wants, right? He's consolidated power in one person. And to me, the worry. So we'll judge them not based on a Western yardstick, but we'll judge them on their own. That over the last 30 years, 40 years, what made them superior to any autocratic nation was they were actually a meritocracy. And he got into that position purely based on a meritocracy. I mean,
So
The Economist is running,
and I'm gonna
they've
put
called
it
him the prince, and they've got a podcast that they've been running. And, I advise that we all listen to that podcast.
Yeah, listen to it. It's quite interesting.
It's quite interesting because it talks about his entire life. And if you think about it,
Why didn't you share that with me?
If you didn't find it on your own, then...
With friends like this. Maybe this is a good place for us to end the show.
It's a very interesting discussion because it talks about how he rose to power. And if you think about it, by all measures, it was meritocratic.
Well, so to me, the biggest red flag, and I'm going to bet that this is not going to end well, is a few years ago, they celebrated Karl Marx's the 200
years
anniversary of his birthday, and Xi's on record saying that in his mind, Karl Marx is the greatest thinker ever.
But he was a great thinker. And Tinashe likes Marx's thinking.
Does he? Are you?
He's been sarcastic.
So yeah.
Anyway,
but there's something
can we go now?
That Xi
Can we go?
He thinks of the glory days.
You've got
30
seconds.
30 seconds. Xi's idea is less about Marx, but the glory days. And the glory days are from his father. And it was during the Cultural Revolution. Actually, that's what he sees China as. He sees China what's his name? Deng. And he sees that's the glory days of China for whatever reason. And he will want to go back to those days.
Mao he was a disaster on an epic level.
But from a
Okay, you're 30 seconds out.
autocratic
You're 30 seconds out.
Yeah, no.
So we're going to go now.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is that okay with you?
Perfect.
Sure.
Is that okay with you?
Perfect.
It's been lovely having you along. Maybe we should have beer more often. It seems to lubricate the discussions better than some of the spirits we sometimes sample.
Outside of the smell, but yeah, sure.
It's been lovely having you along. We hope that we have caused you to think about some of these things. And if we have, we hope that you share your thoughts with people around you that make policy, that have influences on policy, because all we want is a better Zimbabwe. Stay safe. Be good. If you can't be good, be good at it.
Cheers.
Cheers.